Hey everybody, welcome back to PathMonk Presents. PathMonk is the AI for website conversions. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in their buying journey separates you from the competition online. PathMonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50% by adding PathMonk to your website in seconds, letting the artificial intelligence do all the work, and increase conversions by 50% while you keep doing marketing as usual. Check us out on pathmonk.com. Welcome back to PathMonk Presents. We're really looking forward to today's episode because we've got Chris Morin over at Moonraker today. Chris, how you doing?
I'm great, Kevin. Nice to be here.
Thanks for joining. Chris is the agency owner over at Moonraker. We're really looking forward to getting his insights about what they're doing from a marketing perspective for their clients. But before we dive into things too seriously, why don't you give our audience a little bit of a background? What is Moonraker, and what are you guys doing over there?
Sure. So Moonraker is primarily an SEO agency focused on therapists, so mental health. And we're also moving more into CRO and leveraging AI as much as possible. It's kind of funny, it's moonraker.ai, and I picked that URL probably 7 or 8 years ago before we were using any of it, but I liked it and I knew that eventually it was going to happen, and here we are.
Seems like a little bit of a premonition then. Okay, so I want to focus on what you guys are doing from a business aspect. Maybe you can tell us, I know that you mentioned you work specifically in the mental health space. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those companies that you guys are working for, what sort of problems you're solving for them, and what sort of services your clients can expect?
Absolutely. So what I have learned from decades of being a wellness provider as well. So I used to be a massage therapist for a long time, and I met a lot of people that are amazing practitioners. They care deeply about the healing work that they do, but they know very little about marketing or anything digital for that matter. And it was this idea, well, if I just put out the right intentions, then the right people will come. And it's like, yeah, maybe. And that's important, but also you should probably have a website or at least a business card or something. And so it appeared as though there was a huge disadvantage and like a tech illiteracy that's pretty common in that space. And I just happened to be one of those weirdos that was a balance between the two, like appreciating that kind of stuff and also learning more and more about marketing from helping my family's manufacturing facility to grow online as well as other things. And so I realized pretty soon I don't want to do massage for the rest of my life. It's really hard work, and I would rather support wellness providers in doing what they do because there's no guarantee they're going to get clients. They might have to go back and work at a restaurant or walk dogs or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but these people really love what they do and they need help. And so the ideal client, like the perfect client, would be a group practice that has aspirations to scale to a larger group practice. I find that most of our clients at this point are solo practitioners, and they're in a place of scarcity because they really know very little about how to generate leads online. They probably have a website. They might have spent a lot of money on a really nice website, but nobody is finding it, and they're not really sure what to do after that.
One of the things you mentioned that was really interesting to me is you thought there was kind of this technology illiteracy within the industry. Is this something that was kind of common, or is it becoming a little less common now that we're moving forward and more people are being aware of this, or is it still today kind of an industry where they're really not taking advantage of online capabilities?
I think it's definitely changing. What I found, and it's interesting because when we're looking for new clients, I spend a lot of time on Facebook in groups. There's a lot of groups dedicated to helping therapists learn how to market, and it's one of the it's one of the only niches that I've found really thrives on Facebook because it's an industry comprised of predominantly women, and especially I would say like 30 to 50-year-old women, and that's like the hot spot or the sweet spot on Facebook. And as younger people get involved, they're definitely learning more. But in my experience, that demographic is traditionally not the best at digital marketing or tech in general. And there does seem to be a bit of like kind of like digging in the heels kind of thing, like a resistance to it. There's also a general resistance to just sales and marketing terminology in general. So a lot of the, and I'll mention this later, but a lot of the marketing that I'm doing is webinars, podcasts like this to audiences of therapists that are trying to learn. And I changed the terminology from something like a sales funnel to the client journey. It's, for
Mm,
example, because there's this phobia of being too salesy. We don't
mm,
want to just sell people. There needs to be this compassionate and feel good component to it. And I think that in some situations creates a disadvantage because people might not want to learn what they should learn because it's just too capitalistic for them.
mm. I see that. Yeah, you try as a wellness professional trying to balance, not coming off as too salesy versus actually driving the growth generation that you really need. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
see kind of those opposing mindsets.
absolutely.
Um, in terms of the audience, how do they typically find out about you right now? I'm assuming you guys do a lot of your own SEO, but maybe you can talk about how do most of your clients currently find you?
Yeah, and of course we're doing SEO. Ironically, I would say that the website is almost a secondary component of what we're doing because almost all of the leads this year have been generated from collaboration partnerships. So I'm doing mostly outbound cold email, believe it or not, and reaching out to the owners of Facebook groups and other brands that are selling education or coaching or courses or something to therapists to learn how to market or improve their own website SEO, things like that. Not so much direct competitors, but there's not a ton of SEO agencies in the space. And so I've begun to collaborate with as many of these folks that are at the top of these educational hubs as possible, either offering direct marketing services to them so that they can experience it firsthand, or just sharing some gems of wisdom in their groups on our own webinars and podcasts so that people know what they need to know. And it's one of those interesting phenomenons. I got over this fear a long time ago that I could share too much and then nobody would need what we do. And I've really leaned into that. And I could tell somebody 99% of our whole strategy, and then they would come to us anyway, because they just don't really want to do it or want to learn how to do it as well as
Mm,
we do. And so all of the leads are extraordinarily warm because of that, because we're introduced by a trusted person in that space. And so the conversations have been phenomenal for that reason, because they show up, there's no issues with trust. It's really just about what do you do and how do you do it and can I afford it?
And having those, I guess it's kind of like a different way of saying social proof, right? It's kind of a referral is ultimately like a trustworthy introduction, right? But it's kind of like social proof. So yeah, if someone else is saying, yeah, Chris did a great job for us and you should check him out and he really knows what he's doing within this industry, you've already beaten, 50% of the sales job right there.
100%. And when the owner of a group with 20,000 people and it says we use Moonraker for our SEO, then everybody's like, well, that's the one for me. So it really
Exactly.
saves us a lot of trouble for sure.
Great. I want to stay on the topic of the website,
Yeah,
but more so about your opinion. So, what sort of strengths or weaknesses does your website play, or does it have right now? Like, it doesn't sound like it's necessarily a primary lead generation tool, but what are some of the things you do and do not like about it currently?
sure. So I'm actually really happy with the site right now, and it's taken years to get there. And based on what I appreciate about it, I'm suggesting the same types of things to clients because unless it's an e-commerce site or like a SaaS platform, we can sell subscriptions that are like a low ticket, sub $200 a month kind of thing, where somebody could purchase that without having a sales call. Generally, I am going to sell people on an hour-long sales call or maybe two. And therapists as well. They're always selling on a consultation call. And so the purpose of a website, in my opinion, for businesses that run like that is to be a really glorified interactive business card and also a hub for social proof. And so it needs to look nice. It needs to have a nice user experience, of course, but we're really focusing on four critical elements that I've identified in the hero section because I've seen so many atrocious websites lately. It's pretty amazing. And so I'm encouraging people like dial in the why, as I'm calling it, like that emotionally impactful slogan. For example, I have one client, they do intensives, like 3 to 5 day retreats where they're using trauma-specific therapeutic modalities to help people work through PTSD and things like that. Their slogan is get a year's worth of healing in just 1 week. And that's powerful. If you've been suffering for a long time and you read that, you're like, oh, hell yeah, I need that. And then the second element would be the what, like, how do I achieve that? So that's a little bit about the actual services, intensives for people that have experienced blah, 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 blah. And then it's social proof. So where are your affiliations? Do you have credentials? You know, are you verified by Psychology Today? It doesn't need to be that flashy. It's just from a layman's perspective, they want to see some badges and some names that they recognize. So that client has like an NPR logo because one of the clinicians was featured on a podcast on NPR. So of course it's going to be there. And then of course the call to action, and that's it. And my site is very much the same, but the entire homepage, I would say 85% is just hammering people with social proof, like trusted by the experts, all these huge logos, full-fledged case studies where it's like Google Search Console results with someone's headshot and a testimonial. And then at the bottom, it's like, hey, this is me. Do you want to talk about some stuff? And there's specific pages about the elements of what we do. But honestly, from looking at analytics, I don't think anybody even goes there. So they're predominantly using my site as just a place to find the booking link and get on a call with me. And that's been really great. So I think for in my case, the homepage is absolutely the most important page of the site. If the other ones are read at all, I'm not sure. And I don't really think that it needs to be more advanced than that because of the nature of the leads that are coming through it.
Yeah, and when I put myself in the shoes of the clients for these types of websites, right? Like if I'm looking for not just a therapist, let's say a doctor in the area or a dentist or something like that. The first thing I'm looking to know is, are they qualified? Do they do a good job? And do people say that they do a good job?
Absolutely.
And if you can figure that out within the first 15 seconds of landing on a website's homepage, then yeah, I think it's going to be pretty successful.
Absolutely. And the whole point, in my opinion, is just get people to reveal themselves to you. Get them on your calendar, because even the contact form, it's okay, but they're going to, you know, hammer the keyboard at 3 a.m. and forget it ever happened, or they're going to go on and they're going to reach out to 20 other people. And it may not be that someone else is a better fit, but they're an adequate fit. And if they respond first, then you might lose the business. So we're always trying to get people on a calendar, whether it's for us or for clients, because what we found is that they will tend to slow down or cease their search for the time being until they have a chance to talk. So there's a little hiatus in that process until they speak to us, and then they evaluate it and decide if they want to work with us or move forward.
And getting those bookings, those consultations, those initial meetings, whatever it may be, sounds like it's probably a pretty primary conversion for a lot of the websites you work on. And
100%.
to kind of segue into the next question, like what, in your opinion, does make a great converting website? We've already been talking about it a little bit, but do you have any like tools or tips or methods that you might recommend?
Yeah, well, of course, I would definitely mention Pathmo because we're using it with the clients when we can, because what I think provides the best user experience on a website, obviously it has to be fast and smooth and mobile responsive. But another big piece that I see missing a lot is as soon as somebody crosses that threshold, wherever it is, where they decide, you know what, I want to reach out and see what this is all about, there needs to be something within the frame they can tap. So, you know, repetitive buttons to drive that primary call to action, or in the case like Pathmonk, you know, like a little sidebar pop-ups that pop up strategically and remind people of the main call to action as they're moving around. Like this type of tool is super useful, especially if you can read the place in the buyer's journey that someone is currently located within. So that's been incredible. And the clients that we've sold it to already have seen really amazing conversion growth in just like 30 to 60 days. So it's been awesome. It's not necessarily the best fit for like a solo practitioner that's getting 100 clicks on their website. So in that case, the least that we can do is just get like a sticky menu that has the button at the top that just follows people. Get it like a chatbot widget at the bottom. It doesn't even have to be a chatbot. It could just be like a button that brings up a little email box, like a contact form or a text message thing or something. So providing people that have been trained by incredible streamlined user experiences like TikTok to get instantly gratified, to give them some semblance of that same experience on a client's website where they can find the next step within 1 to 2 seconds from when they decide they want to take it. That's going to really move things forward, because especially with this population, we're working with therapists. The people that go to their websites are highly distressed. Their executive functions are not necessarily working really great. They don't necessarily read all the information. So the value that can be provided is on a call. That's really where they absorb the information. Like, so many of my clients don't take insurance. We could name the website we don't take insurance.com, and people would still ask that question. So the whole point is not to inform. It's really just like, come over here. Let's talk to you. Like, everything is about that.
I really like what you said about the moment when something clicks and someone's on the website, there needs to be something available for them to take action, right? Because let's say that moment just happens when they're on a blog page or something and they're just reading and reading and there's no actual like call to action. There's nothing like prompting some sort of engagement, right? That's a really interesting thought. Even like you mentioned with smaller websites, which maybe 100, 200 clicks per month, something like that, as long as that sticky button is always there at the top, providing some sort of, okay, click here when you're ready. Or PathMonk pops up at the right time to say, click here to engage, click here to book a meeting, whatever it might be. I think that's really, really insightful because a lot of people don't think about that. The homepage, there's always going to be a call to action. And
Yeah.
there are ways that you can make it so that there's always a call to action on any page, regardless of where you are. But finding the best way to do that in a strategic method sounds like something that you kind of prompted me to think of as a really good
Yeah.
idea.
And this is a dynamic process, because it's easy to think linearly, like, okay, they're considering and then they decide, yes, I would like to reach out. And that's just where they stay until they find it. That
Yeah.
could last for 3 seconds. And then their kid bugs them. Or they're just like, I'm going to go and look at this Instagram post that my friend just sent me, or whatever. And then they forget. And it's not that they don't need that service. It's that this has been put off by 100 other things and they're finally there. And if we can streamline that process and eliminate the friction, then that's going to help a lot of people, especially people that are already in a state of distress, like with this clientele.
That's really insightful. And I think also very unique to this industry, but I think it's also something that anyone, regardless of industry, should probably keep in mind in terms of things to recommend for something that would make a great converting website. Okay. We're moving on to the next stage of the conversation. We're going to be speaking a little less about Moonraker and a little bit more about Chris as the marketing professional. But the first question I'm going to have for you is maybe you can let us know, like, what does a day-to-day at Moonraker look like? What are some of the primary tasks you're focusing on a typical day?
Yeah, so I am actually in the process of hiring an integrator to remove me from a lot of the things that I'm doing that I don't think I should be doing anymore. So all in all, like, the tasks that are required of all of us are, calls like this. That's what I'm doing. Things that I'm also doing that I probably shouldn't be doing: monitoring the SEO team, making sure that new batches of content for new clients is dialed in before we send something off for the first time and disappoint somebody. This is a responsibility that someone else should do instead. I'm definitely trying to avoid being the technician, but I'm very protective over what I've grown. I really appreciate and enjoy the client interactions. I've realized, and this was something that was a big revelation in the last couple of months, I love initial sales calls and inspiring action. I do not enjoy client success management. I don't like assuaging fears as they come up. And so that's definitely a role for somebody else, because I tend to take that personally, and then I get kind of disappointed, like, oh man, we're not making them as happy as I want. And I get alarmed by that, perhaps more than I would like to. And so that's really something for someone else that I'm working to fill that role for. And so a lot of what I would like to spend my day doing is sales calls, podcasts, and webinars, and also deciding like where to steer the ship. Like, oh, we just built a website for a client and they wanted a bunch of pre and post assessment tests that were something that you could just do on the website, and it provide clients with results as they go. And then you could submit it to the company before they came in for a therapeutic experience. And using AI development tools like Bolt and Lovable and these awesome platforms, we made something that was so slick for this one client. And I thought, I'm going to package this and make a product that I can sell to every single therapist in America for like $20 a month. And so I'm looking at other opportunities for like SaaS products, more passive income streams, because managing high ticket clients is great, but there's always going to be that client management piece that's going to far surpass, like, it's a $20 a month subscription and it's more like tech support related stuff. So trying to diversify more. remove myself from the day to day so that I can just kind of sit here and dream and look at the sky and think about what's next. That's really what I want to do.
I've heard of some leadership teams that have the integrator, like you mentioned, and the innovator, right? And it sounds like you lean a little bit more to the innovator side, and you need
Absolutely.
the integrator to help you with the rest of the stuff. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on to the next question. I know everyone kind of is always trying to get smarter, better, faster, stronger, whatever they say. But there's a lot of places to kind of go to consume content where we can learn and grow and kind of improve upon ourselves. Where do you go to kind of stay up to date and consume some of this content that's meant to kind of improve upon ourselves day to day?
Well, I read a ton of stuff, not necessarily related to marketing. I would say in terms of like self-improvement, I'm usually reading about health and wellness stuff. When it comes to business, it's it's interesting. I don't frequent any journals or blogs or anything like that. I actually spend a ton of time talking to AI, especially as I mentioned, these development platforms like ChatGPT, Claude, et cetera. These are amazing tools, but the ones that are specifically designed for development, I find to be really fascinating because it brings back this creative spark that I used to have. Like I'm a very perfectionistic person. And the joke with one of my agency partners is that I'm over here like worried about like a 15 pixel border radius when I should be selling a client for $5,000. And I just get so fixated on those little details that it really hinders the creative process for me. And so now that we can just conversationally chat with these platforms about what we'd like to build that transcend my ability as a coder or developer, which I'm not, it's been so fun. And so I've just been chatting with these tools as I just try to build random stuff like, hey, what do you think is the best way to highlight this information? Or like one client had this truly atrocious spreadsheet. They have a beautiful office in Midtown Manhattan. They wanted to do short-term therapist rentals in addition to the offices for their main practice. And it's like, this is the inside office. This is the outside office. This is the member rate, the non-member rate, the peak hours, like blah, blah, blah. And this is one of those projects where I just would have closed the laptop and just walked away. And I finished that and actually made something usable for the client in about 30 minutes on one of these platforms. And it just got so many other things spinning. Like it's such an incredible rabbit hole. And I find that I have enough ideas already. And if I do eventually have time, which I'm hoping I will in the next couple of months, I want to reverse engineer some bespoke versions of a lot of the tools that we're using in our tech stack so I can save on subscription costs per month. Don't worry, I'm not going to recreate PathMonk, but there's some other tools that, in my opinion, are way too complex for what we need, like Go High Level. Amazing, terrible, complicated platform. I love it and hate it all the time. And it's so slow and we use it every day and it's the worst. And so if I could make my own streamlined version with like 4 out of the 7,200 features, that would be amazing. And so that's what I spend my time doing, like recreating as much as I can in a way that is perfectly suited to us. And then maybe down the line, if I could productize it, sure, that would be really cool.
That's interesting. Oh, I've asked a lot of people on these podcasts, where do they go to kind of learn and stay up to date? And everyone's always referencing maybe like these podcasts or these people that I follow on LinkedIn, or even like leveraging their networks, or some people say like going to Reddit all the time, which I think are all great answers. I think you're the first one that ever said, I spend my time speaking with AI.
Yeah.
And that's got to be the first for this podcast. So a really interesting answer. Moving on to the final section of the website. This is kind of like a rapid fire round. So we're usually looking for short, crisp answers, kind of first thing that comes to your mind. But they're also a little bit more playful in the nature of the questions themselves. But I'll get you started with an easy one. What's the last book that you read?
Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Amazing. Hostage negotiator. This will change your life. I use these tactics every single day. Quick example, instead of saying, try this with your wife. Can you grab me a glass of water? And she's like, yes, I guess so, because I love you and I'm going to form a micro resentment and hold it for 10 years. Do you mind getting me a glass of water? Would it be impossible for you to get me a glass of water? No, of course not, hon. I love you and I'm helpful. Now I feel like a hero and there's no resentment. Little things like that. That's one of the things in the book, the power of no, when we allow somebody to say no in a way that leads them towards the answer that we're seeking. There's like 10 or 20 gems in that book, and I use it in sales calls and in my personal life every day. It's amazing.
I will definitely add that one to my list. It sounds quite useful, both in work and outside of work. Okay, next one. If there were no boundaries in technology, and I mean like nothing, magic, snap your finger, anything is possible, what would be one thing that you would want to have fixed for your role as a marketer today?
Fix is my role just from marketing. Let's see. I would like a tool that I can actually just have a conversation with the client, and then it takes that and then formulates a full marketing strategy, and then deploys like an omni-channel thing that actually works. And I would also love AI that knows how to draw fingers.
That's true. They always seem to get the fingers wrong. But that first idea, really, really good. I think, yeah, take this initial AI, please take this initial conversation that I had with client A, based on everything we discussed, to develop a strategy, all of the materials that are needed, and deploy it all by yourself. And
Yeah.
we'll see the results over the next 30 days or something
Yeah.
like that,
On
right?
whatever website, whatever weird, there's always these weird little things like just figure it out. I don't want to deal with it.
That's awesome. Okay. Next one. If there was one repetitive task out of all the things you do, and I know things can get very repetitive in marketing, what would be the one thing that you would automate?
Hmm. I
Anything.
Yeah, I feel controversy about this because I don't want to replace human interaction. But one thing that's a time suck for me is client reporting. One of the services we provide is I do a quick 5-10 minute reporting video for every client at the end of the month, and they tend to stack up. I enjoy it. And I've found that it can actually be a really useful upsell tool. We just made another 6-month contract, and that was based on this reporting video. And so I'm concerned about automating that. But if I could actually just have myself in a video that I was actually not in, I'm sleeping, and then it's just my avatar that talks, and it actually is enough like me that I look at it and I'm like, that's creepy.
Or
That would be
for
awesome.
any of those Severance fans out there, have your innie record the video while and the Audi has no idea what's going on about it. That would be really, really good. Okay. And the last question. What is one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you were to restart your journey as a marketer today?
Yeah. It's hard to say because I feel pretty satisfied with how things are going. One thing that's interesting that has been coming out lately, so I've been spending a lot of time living in Vietnam, which I really love. I'm surrounded by a lot of young entrepreneurial people, and I feel some regret at not starting this sooner because I have a roommate that's 25 and it's like I'm 40, and like, man, I wish I got into this back then. But this actually didn't really exist back then. It was, I did this as soon as I could. So I would tell myself now, like, just just keep going. Just don't stop. Like, there's been so many things that I have come through that I thought were insurmountable, especially in a professional sense. I heard it a long time ago, probably some other good book. The difference between an amateur and a pro is that a pro shows up even when they don't want to. And I just keep on doing this. And it will change over time, but that's the one thing I always remind myself. Like, maybe it's not SEO, maybe it's not this niche, maybe it's not these tools or this team, but this life that is afforded to me because of this agency, traveling the world, doing what I love to do. I would never do it any other way.
Awesome, and very wise words, very mature, wise words. So we love having you on the show, Chris. Thank you so much for joining. We really
Kevin.
appreciate it. If there's anyone out there in the mental health space that needs an SEO agency, please contact Chris over at Moonraker. He's the best. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Kevin.